Welcome to Doing the Work, a Naples integrated recovery podcast. My name is Brian, and this space is for anyone who's tired of surviving the same emotional and behavioral loops, whether that's anxiety, trauma, addiction, or problems in your relationships. Around here, we cut the surface level advice and sugarcoating, no platitudes or bumper sticker wisdom. We focus on clarity, responsibility, emotional discipline, and the courage to look at yourself honestly so that you can stop repeating old patterns and start living with intention instead of reaction. Let's get into it. Today, I want to walk you through a pattern that I see everywhere, whether it's trauma work, addiction, relationship conflict, anxiety spirals, and emotional blow-ups that are way bigger than they really should be. And I'm talking about small daily stuff that hijacks your mood. There is a cycle that's underneath all of it. And what's interesting is that humans noticed this cycle thousands of years ago, long before neuroscience, long before MRI machines, and long before we had words like amygdala reactivity, default mode network, or interoception. Before you brace yourself, with the title of this being about spirituality, I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about human behavior and a behavioral map of why humans hurt and how we often multiply that pain. And there are 4 parts to this: what pain is, why suffering happens, what makes relief possible, and what we can do about it. Starting point: nobody is exempt. Life involves pain, not as punishment, but biology. Life interrupts. It doesn't wait for a better time. It doesn't negotiate. Sometimes it's small, that you got cut off in traffic, or your phone freezes when you are in the middle of something where you critically needed the app to work. Could be standing in the 10 item or less line and somebody has 25 items and you're upset at their etiquette. Sometimes it is heavy. A life-changing diagnosis, a betrayal from a friend, a job loss, chronic stress, caring for an elderly parent, your own aging or grief. And none of it is punishment. It doesn't mean that you did something wrong. Pain is part of the nervous system's operating system. The problem is that a lot of people treat pain like it's an error message, with a thought that this shouldn't be happening to me, or why me, or I've been doing everything right. And here's the mismatch. Your nervous system is built for constant change, unpredictability, and impermanence, but the mind tends to expect stability, control, and fairness. This mismatch is where suffering starts. When something uncomfortable happens, your nervous system reacts automatically. Heart rate shift, muscles tighten, your attention narrows, and all of this happens without you consciously thinking about any of it, because your brain has a built-in threat detector. That's your amygdala. And its job is not to be reasonable, it's to keep you alive. So, irritation, uncertainty, and emotional discomfort get treated like danger, even though they're not. And that is the reason that small things can feel personal. That's why your mood can derail before anything bad has actually even happened, or why you can be having a reaction to something that was really created in your head, but you are feeling it everywhere in your body. Nothing's wrong with you. This is just how human wiring works. Pain is unavoidable, but suffering, the way that pain turns into spirals, stories, and self-attack, that is something completely different. And that's where the rest of this episode is going to go. Pain is unavoidable. That part is not negotiable. Discomfort, loss, frustration, uncertainty, and emotional hits are built into the system. It's not evidence that you have failed or that life has singled you out in some sort of cosmic way, or that you have missed some rule that everybody else has figured out. It's all part of how a nervous system that's designed for survival operates in a changing environment. The problem is that pain doesn't arrive alone. It shows up with an automatic biological reaction, and then almost immediately the mind starts doing something with that reaction. That's where suffering is created. Your body has the sensation, like a tightness or a change in the stomach or a flushed face, and it's automatic. You don't choose it, and you don't need to judge it. Then comes your brain's interpretation. The mind steps in and starts trying to make sense of what just happened, and it starts asking questions like, what does this mean? Why do I feel this way? What's going to happen next? What does this say about me or my future? And that's where things spiral. Pain is the sensation. Suffering is the meaning that we layer on top of it. And there's a specific part of the brain involved in this handoff between sensation and interpretation. This is where a little bit of neuroscience can be a useful map. That region that tracks what's happening is called the insula. Think of it like an interior sensor. It's constantly monitoring things like your heart rate, breathing, muscle tension, your gut sensations, and your general internal state. If the insula is operating in a regulated system, then those sensations feel clear and tolerable. You can notice them without panicking. But when the system is stressed, overloaded, or chronically activated, the insula turns the volume up. Then those normal sensations feel urgent, intense, dangerous, even though there's nothing that is objectively threatening that's happening. That is an important point. The sensation itself did not change. It was the interpretation of the sensation that changed. Once the insula flags that sensation as something that's significant, a different system takes over, and that's called the default mode network, or I'll say DMN. The DMN is the brain's narrative engine. It's what kicks on when you're not anchored in the present moment, and it starts to replay the past, predict the future, compare you to others, and it can build stories about who you are and what things mean. When the DMN activates during distress, the brain stops experiencing what's actually happening, and then it starts a commentary on it, like, things like this always happen, or I can't handle this, or it's going to get worse. And the body is sending a signal, the insula amplifies it, and then DMN writes a story around it. At this point, the nervous system is not even reacting to reality anymore, it's just reacting to its own narrative. This is why suffering feels disproportionate to the event. The brain ends up responding to a story, not the sensation. And once that loop gets going, it just keeps feeding itself. There are 3 common ways that this plays out behaviorally. And once I name them, you're going to see that you see them everywhere. The first is grasping. And that sounds like, if I could just get something to change, I'll be okay loop. So if I can have more certainty, more reassurance, more control, more money, different outcome, different version of me, the nervous system starts to feel unsettled, and then the mind tries to resolve that discomfort by chasing something that's external. Neurochemically, this is driven by dopamine, which, if you listen to the last episode, dopamine's not about pleasure, it's about pursuit, and it spikes when you are chasing relief, and then it drops when you don't get it or if the relief doesn't last. That drop feels like something's wrong, which pushes the system to chase again. And the problem is that the baseline keeps dipping, so the urge to fix, control, or acquire keeps getting stronger. The second pattern is avoidance. This is the flip side of grasping. So instead of chasing something to feel better, the system tries to prevent anything uncomfortable from happening. Like, as long as I don't ever have to be vulnerable, or that I don't face conflict, as long as I don't have uncertainty or I don't have risk, then I'll be okay. Avoidance reduces distress temporarily, which teaches the brain that avoiding means safety. But over time, the nervous system becomes more sensitive, not less. The range of what feels tolerable shrinks and life can get smaller. The brain learns that discomfort is dangerous instead of manageable. The third pattern is misinterpretation. This is where thoughts are treated as facts and predictions are treated as truth. Your emotions start to define your identity. So a feeling of anxiety becomes something's wrong with me. Or a moment of sadness becomes this is who I am now. That a passing thought or a passing emotion becomes a verdict. This is the DMN doing what it does best when it's unchecked. Creating meaning faster than accuracy can actually even keep up. In all three of these cases, the original pain, it is real, but the suffering comes from what the system does with it. The body reacts, and then the mind creates a narrative. The story amplifies the threat. Relief does not come from eliminating pain. That's not realistic. Pain is just part of being alive in a body that is wired to detect change and risk. Relief comes from changing the state of the nervous system when pain shows up. When resistance drops, not resignation, not being passive, but with accurate awareness, the system shifts. Threat detection quiets down, and the parts of the brain that are responsible for perspective, impulse control, and long-term thinking can all come back online. You're not being calm in some artificial way like you're meditating it away. You're regaining access to your full cognitive capacity. This is where interoception is important. Interoception, or I've also heard Huberman say interoception, is simply your brain's ability to read internal signals accurately. And when your interoception is poor, signals feel overwhelming and confusing, but when it improves, the same sensations can feel clear and manageable. Practically, this means that even just naming sensations without immediately explaining them matters. So when I do EMDR, one of the first things is that after a person has brought forward a target image or whatever it is that we're going to work on, I have them just notice. Where are you feeling it in your body? What kind of sensation is it? Are you able to identify any kind of an emotion? I'll give them an emotion wheel and see if they can maybe find 3 or 4 different words that might fit the experience. And so saying something like, my chest feels tight, is a lot more accurate than saying, I'm freaking out. Or saying, I feel some pressure in my stomach is different than saying, something bad is happening. This is accurate data for your nervous system, and that accuracy reduces threat. Threat reduction restores choice. This is where agency lives, and it's important to be precise about what agency really means here. You don't control the sensations that you experience. You don't control the first spike of emotion. You don't control the first initial firing of the amygdala and the nervous system. That's just your biology, and pretending to be different adds shame, like you shouldn't be experiencing those things. But what you do control is what happens next. You control where your attention goes after a sensation is noticed. You control whether a story is going to be treated as truth or interpretation. You control what behavior follows. And that's where dichotomy of control lands in real terms. Not a philosophical stoicism thing, not something abstract, but practical. When you catch a reaction early enough, you can interrupt the whole loop. You're not suppressing it. You're not forcing yourself to feel different, but you're separating what is happening from what you are telling yourself about what's happening. That is where this skill comes in. First, notice the sensation before the narration. The earlier that you catch your body reacting, the less momentum the story has. Second, recognize thoughts as interpretations, not facts. Thoughts are predictions, they're not verdicts. Treating them as such re-engages your thinking brain. Third, drop should language, like this shouldn't happen to me, or I should have been better than this, or they should know what I need. Should spikes threat because it frames reality as wrong. Accuracy is what lowers arousal. Reality doesn't need to be approved of to be worked with. Fourth, see clearly instead of through habit. Catastrophizing, personalizing, and black and white thinking, these are all called cognitive distortions. They're not moral failures. They're shortcuts that your brain takes when you're in distress, but precision dissolves them better than effort ever will. Fifth, choose behavior that aligns with your values instead of panic. When your nervous system settles enough for your perspective to return, action can become a choice again. Sixth, use sustainable effort. Consistency stabilizes the dopamine system way better than any kind of intensity. Think, for example, if you were to go to the gym and do a little bit every day, half hour, a little bit of weights, a little bit of cardio, and to make a little bit better choices nutritionally, that's going to be something that's way more sustainable than being all or nothing, going to the gym for 3-4 hours, thinking that you can run a marathon, trying to burn 3,000 calories because you're punishing yourself for a late night binge. That's not going to be sustainable. Seventh, train attention gently. This isn't about control or suppression, but just redirecting the mind whenever you notice that you are starting to ruminate. Eighth, stay present without collapsing or escaping. Presence isn't a spiritual thing, it's physiological. It stabilizes breathing, it restores the baseline, and it reduces unnecessary threat activation. When people talk about ancient wisdom traditions, this is where it can kind of get vague and mystical, but it really doesn't need to be. Everything in this model that I just discussed, that pain is inevitable, that we amplify suffering with our own interpretation, that there is a possibility of relief, and that relief comes through practicing skills. This is all an ancient behavioral map. Are you ready for it? Probably some of you already knew. I didn't want to lead with calling it this, but because I didn't want to discourage anybody from shying away. But what I have been giving you through all of this is the concept of the Four Noble Truths from Buddhism. It was articulated long before neuroscience could measure it, and the overlap is not accidental. Before closing out of the episode, hear me out. There is a quote that I want you to hear, and it is, "Don't try to use what you learn from Buddhism to be a Buddhist. Use it to be a better whatever you already are," emphasizing these principles can be used to exist your life, no matter if you are a Christian, an atheist, a neuroscientist. It can be used by anybody. This is not about creating a religious identity, but more about alleviating your own suffering and fostering compassion and wisdom for your own path, whatever that is. Translated clinically, Buddhism calls these the Four Noble Truths. Pain is part of life. We add pain through craving, avoidance, and misinterpretation. We don't have to do that, and there's a practical path that reduces suffering. The Eightfold Path is not a moral code. It's a set of psychological skills that can regulate your nervous system and reduce unnecessary threat. Clear seeing reduces distortion. Honest intention aligns action with your values. Wise speech lowers interpersonal threat. Aligned action stabilizes behavior. Sustainable effort regulates your dopamine. Mindful awareness quiets rumination. Mental stability strengthens attention, and focused presence supports physiological regulation. You don't have to believe in anything new to use those skills. You don't need to become a monk or wear a robe or think that you have to chant your way into a butterfly. There's so many misconceptions that surround the idea of spirituality. This is not about adopting any kind of a new identity or worldview. It's just about how a human nervous system functions when it is being hijacked by its own predictions. The irony is that the more accurately you accept reality, the more agency that you regain. Not because life became easier, but because you stopped multiplying pain through automatic loops. So, that is the neuroscience of spirituality through a lens of Buddhism. Pain will show up. That is unavoidable, but suffering doesn't have to dominate the system. That's the work. Thanks for spending the time with me. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with somebody who may need to hear it. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others around you. Remember that we're all doing the best that we can with the tools that we currently have, and we are all capable of growing past them. If you'd like to reach out or connect, send me an email, brian@naplesintegratedrecovery.com. I hope to hear from you there. And in the meantime, thanks again for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.